but maybe we can't hear anybody yet.
They're all muted.
Oh, everybody's muted.
All right, well, welcome everybody. This is Conrad. I'm off screen, but got Edith Prince with me over here. You want us to go ahead and say hi?
Hello, everybody.
So in our room here, we've got a few other people here. You guys want to introduce yourselves so that in case any questions or anything come up?
I'm Suzanne Mincer, and I'm just here to find out information.
Yeah, we have some new volunteers that have dropped in. So this is a unique experience for us for Coach Connection. We're both virtual and in person slightly. So new things.
We're Dave and Linda Nisley, and just starting with the Extra Mile program.
Yeah, new Extra Mile coaches. All right, we'll do just a quick intro. I want to give Edie as much time as possible to share. So if you guys can just go around, just mention your name and if you're with Extra Mile side by side, just something real quick there.
Hi, my name is Gail McMason. I am the pastor of Russell Chapel, with the church that Sister Edie attends. And so I'm very proud and happy to be in attendance with you all today.
We're glad you're here.
I'm Nancy Maddox, and you don't get a picture today. I do Extra Mile coaching. I can do side by side, and I work for Jane doing the church prayer list on Wednesday morning.
I'm Brenda Fouts, and I've been trained for Extra Mile coaching, but not yet matched thanks to COVID.
I'm Justine. I'm a job coach.
I'm Kathleen Brown. I do Jobs for Life and just started doing side by side.
I'm Janelle Elmore. I do Extra Mile coaching.
I'm Megan Larson. I'm the clearinghouse coordinator.
And who do you have with you down there, Megan?
I have Chloe with me. Do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Chloe Callahan. I'm a new volunteer learning the ropes for both of the coaching, so just getting working in.
And then we also have Bethany down here.
I can't talk.
She can't talk. She's unpacking her lunch.
We have Roger and Debbie Karwoski. I started with Extra Mile before COVID about a year ago. Debbie does any number of different things and Jobs for Life, including one of them. She's eating her lunch, so we'll keep her on stream.
I'm Tommy Salee. I help Conrad with housing and budgeting coaching.
And then we also have Jane, she's listening in, and then Kelly Van Doren's also listening in as well. I think that's our group for the time being. So thanks again for joining us this afternoon. We have an opportunity I think is unique to have a special guest share with us, and we wanted to have the opportunity really after our last coaching connection. We had some coaches reach out and say, with everything that's been going on with racial injustice, and how can we be more aware of our implicit bias? What are some steps that we can take to try to overcome that racial barrier? And we thought it might be helpful to hear from someone's experience. Relationships are the path forward out of poverty. That's what we believe here at Love Inc. And Edie has been with us for quite a while, and has been really from the very beginning of Love Inc. So wanted to have a chance for you guys to hear her story about what it's been like growing up Black in Columbia.
Give me a clue. I was born and raised in Columbia, in the poorest part of Columbia, was south of Broadway. It was an area called Cemetery Hill, over in back of Columbia Cemetery, where I think it's Eat Well grocery stores there, where Lucky's was. in that area. I'm the 9th child of 11. I was born at home. I was the last one of my mom's kids to be born at home. And my grandmother, my father's mother, delivered me. She was a midwife, so she delivered lots of babies over on Cemetery Hill. I remember going to Cemetery Hill, but shortly after I was born, I had a 15-year-old brother that was killed in a car wreck. So from the monies from that accident, my parents bought a little farm out Rockwary Road now, and it was Route 4 when we were growing up, but Rockwary Road. And so we had 3 acres there, which was a lot when we had to clean it up and cut the grass and things, but it was a lot of area for us to play. So we lived there. I started school at Grandstone School. It was a 1-room Black school. So I started there, 1st grade, and then integration came. So we had to go to New Haven School. And over at New Haven School, I guess I skipped the 2nd grade because all I remember is the 3rd and 4th grade over there. And and I graduated from New Haven School, went to the 8th grade. I graduated. And then they were building a new junior high school when we got ready to come to town to school. And it was West Junior High, 1962. And I was in the first 9th grade class to graduate from there. We went there 1 year. And then it was on to Hickman High School. Boy, was I afraid. When I got off the bus from the country and got off at Hickman, and it was all these Black people there. I knew them all individually, but I had never been to school with so many Black people in all my life. And so it was a little intimidating to me, and I guess I was intimidating to them because I was, what they said was in the accelerated classes, but I didn't know that because I was just doing my lessons. It's the only thing I knew to do was just to study and do what I was supposed to do in school. So me being so naive, I did my best in the 11th grade to try to get out of this history class. So I would skip the class because it was during the lunch hour, and I would do all 3 lunch shifts. Whether I was eating or not, I would be out for lunch for the entire time. And the teacher was so very nice, and we reconnected about 5 years ago, and we are the best of friends. I found out that the class I was in with her was her very first class after college. And so we've reconnected and become great friends. But I graduated from Hickman in 1966. I did not go to college right out of high school. I had planned on going to Kirksville. It was the teacher's college then. And I wanted to be a special ed teacher. But my mom got sick. We found out she was a real bad diabetic. So I decided I'd stay home and help her and Daddy. So I stayed home, got a job at the Memorial Student Union, bussing tables. Boy, that was the best job I had in all my days. I loved bussing those tables. And you meet such interesting people, the professors, the students from the university. It was just amazing. And they would leave me little gifts. One vet student really liked to leave me gifts. He'd always bring a cow's eye and leave it on the table for me.
Bring a what?
Cow's eye.
Oh my gosh.
So I got my fear of being afraid of things from just remembering the cow's eye. So when I got ready for to do nursing, it wasn't anything I could not do. I was not afraid to do. So I began my nursing career in 1967 at the University of Missouri Hospital. And the very first patient I had was a young guy that had been shot in the face with a gunshot victim. And I had to take care of him. And I took care of him, and he lived to go home. And I would see him, and I don't know. I just always say, and I know Reverend McMason probably has heard me say this, that me and Jesus just do a lot of things. You know, he just helps me out. So after that, I got married, had my family, and then I had all the kids in a short period of time. I got 5 kids. They're all old as I am now. So we have 17 grandchildren and 14 great-grandchildren. So Thanksgiving and Christmas is the only time they're allowed to all come to our house at one time. And I expect them to be there. Yeah. But 1971, I started over at Boone Hospital as a nursing tech. And I worked there for 12 years before I started nursing school. And I went to Lincoln University, drove back and forth every day. I would take 1 or 2 classes a semester so I wouldn't be away from the kids too much. I'd have to leave for class after they left for school, and I'd be back home before they got out of school. And I worked every weekend so I could help my husband make ends meet. During my class time at Lincoln, we talk about systemic racism. I had a friend, she was white, and we took a math class together. And it was working at your own pace. And so she finished it the first week and was allowed to take the final. I finished it the second week, and the instructor told me, who was white, told me that I'd have to wait until the end of the semester to take the final. So I tried to explain to him, well, we're riding together and it's gonna be inconvenience for us to bring 2 different cars because, you know, I can't do this class. But he didn't listen, so I waited and got through that. Then when we started our clinicals in the hospital in Jefferson City, and my very first patient broke my heart so bad because as the instructor brought me in the room to introduce me, and the lady said, was an elderly white lady, and she said, she can't take care of me. I can't have her in the room. And the instructor said, but I asked you, did you have a student? But she's not the one. Said, I can have a student, but I can't have her. So I spent a lot of time in the break room working on care plans and reading and just sitting there. But this same instructor, who was white, I had a friend that I studied with, and she was smart, just very smart. And she was married to an Iranian guy. But we studied together, and she helped me quite a bit. So on our care plans, I kept showing them to her where the instructor would be writing all these comments and red marks all over the place. So she said, okay. She gave me one of her care plans, and I copied it word for word and turned it in to the instructor. And when I got it back, it was all these red marks and comments, you know, about whatever. it just wasn't acceptable to her. So I just kind of mentioned, because I tend to run my mouth sometimes, that, you know, this was good enough for so-and-so, so why is it not good enough for me? But then I could have got put out of program for copying, you know, but she would have got in trouble too. So I guess that's why she didn't say anymore. But I went on through the rest of the program, and by last semester, I decided that, you know, I needed to get this finished. I want to go ahead and get all of this finished so I can be taking care of my kids properly and working and what have you, because my oldest was getting ready to go to junior high school. So I asked the director of nursing program, was she okay for me to take an overload, which I was going to take 19 hours. And she said, no, you can't do that. And I said, please just let me try it. And I explained to her, I want to get settled with the kids and what have you. And so she signed the paper reluctantly. And then when we had our graduation, our pinning ceremony, she said, oh, I'm so glad you didn't listen to me. And I said, all I wanted was a chance, you know, just give me a chance and I know what I can do. So I did it, passed my boards on the first round, where I was not the highest in the class, but I wasn't the lowest either. But I passed where some of the ones that had a 4.0 grade point did not pass the state boards and had to repeat them. But I took mine, took my little diploma, and worked at Boone Hospital. When I retired in 2013, I completed 42 years.
Wow.
And all of that time, I was
42 years at what time?
at Boone Hospital.
And how many babies did you deliver all by yourself before the doctor got there?
51.
Oh my gosh.
51. And I always think that my grandma was with me when I was delivering those babies. Yeah.
Because she delivered you?
She delivered me, and she was a midwife. But me and Jesus did a lot of things, I tell you. And some of the patients, when they were having a pretty rough time, and maybe I'd go in and check on the nurse and see if I could help her or something. And the patient would tell me, said, when you came in the room, it was such a peaceful aura that came about. Said, I felt so relaxed. And said, that's why I got through this delivery, was because you came in the room. They didn't know my name or anything. I just came in. Me and Jesus.
That's right.
Well, what you've described, like as we contemplate the topic of privilege, it's something that can be a little bit hard to wrap our heads around, depending on what kind of barriers people have experienced. But the definition that's stood out to me that it really resonates with your story is that privilege doesn't mean that you didn't struggle, but it means that skin color wasn't one of the barriers that those of us that are white have faced. And what you've described sounds like that you have had those barriers that just because of your skin color, that's made a difference, and you've had to work harder to get to be where you are and to accomplish what you set out to accomplish.
Correct. Yes. Yes. And I've taken kicks in the belly when I was pregnant. And I was obviously pregnant because I was carrying twins. And the patient kicked me in the belly and said, get this N word out of here. She's gonna kill me and what have you. Some of the patients, it's mostly the husbands in labor and delivery. They would say they would want somebody with blonde hair and blue eyes. And then the doctor would tell them, if you want somebody with blonde hair and blue eyes, said, we can get it for you. Said, but Edie's the best you're gonna have. One guy, I remember it and I tell it all the time. I was checking his wife in, and he said he wanted the blonde hair, blue eye. And he said, I want you to I want to talk to the charge nurse. I said, okay, fine. So I go out the door to get the charge nurse. And then I come back in and I said, can I help you? And that's the best story. And I mean, he just, there wasn't any more he could say.
Yeah.
Because labor and delivery was my charge station for about 5 years, and then I gave it up. It was just too much, so I just started doing just staff nursing, but I stayed in OB.
I didn't realize they integrated this. You said that, what grade were you in when you were, because I was thinking that Douglas stayed a school.
I never went to Douglas.
So they had switched Douglas by the time you got
No, no. We were in the country, the little one-room schoolhouse that was just up the road from us, about 3 houses up the road from us, and it was called Grindstone.
But you said you went to Weston and to Hickman, right?
Yes.
Did they have homeschool communicators then?
Oh, I wasn't aware of them.
So you don't
Probably
when
not.
they started them.
I don't.
So Beulah
really
wasn't
don't.
involved at that time.
No. Mm-mm. They not with me. I mean, I never needed her assistance. You know, so I had mama and daddy. Wasn't anything. I was afraid, and I skipped class and stayed inside Hickman High School. But I was not going to skip class and go out on the streets where somebody could see me and tell mama and daddy, and then I have to deal with them. No.
Well,
No, I didn't need a homeschool communicator.
But I was thinking that when they integrated the schools, they started the homeschool communicator program. But maybe
They
not.
may have.
Yeah.
They may have. My younger sister, she is 6 years younger than I am. Yeah, I know they had them then. But she went to Douglas for her 6th grade, for her 6th grade year down at Douglas. Mm-hmm. But I never went to Douglas. Me and the sister that's right underneath me, we never went, but all our older sisters and brothers, they went to Douglas.
And you said you were at the end, like number 9 or something?
Number 9.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Your mother must have been a saint. 11 kids?
Yeah.
Any twins?
No.
Oh, my.
No. We're 2 and 3 years apart. Mm-hmm.
One thing I've noticed about Edie, this is Jane talking, is that because she experienced being excluded, she's always looked for all the other people that were being excluded. And that's a lot of how we have interfaced at Love Inc. with her. She helped us get Love Inc. started because she knew more people needed help. And then she taught childbirth classes for 6 years at our Living Large program because she knew there were people that couldn't afford the classes you had to pay for at Boone, or they weren't comfortable coming in as a single parent. When she organized and really sustained the food pantry for 30 years, I'm sure.
No, 13.
13, well, that felt like it. At Russell Chapel, she initiated home delivered meals because she saw people were being left out of the pantry. And just on and on, Edie's always looked for the people who were left out and worked hard in this community. And so it's amazing that you had all the experiences you did, but instead of being bitter, you just sought out other people to help.
Yeah. And can I share a story about a home delivery?
Yeah.
I was doing this home delivery one evening, and as I was driving down the street, I saw the police van and the police officers getting out. So I went on to the house, up the street to the house where I was going to deliver. And once I got in the door, and somebody knocked on the door, so I just opened it. I was standing there, and there was this gun pointed at my belly. It was the police department. They was doing a raid, a drug raid, said they had seen drugs being sold out of this house. I never was so scared in all my days. But then they called, said this police officer's name, and I remembered him. I said, he knows me. I said, ask him about me. He knows I'm not doing anything. And so they called him, and he said, oh no, said, Edie's not doing anything. She's just delivering food. Said, you take her name and address, and you let Edie and those kids out, get Edie and those kids out of the house. So I did, and I took all the kids down to Russell Chapel Church. That's the only place I know. We went to church, and I gave them a little bit to eat, whatever was there in the refrigerator, and waited till their parents came and got them. Yeah, but that police officer saved me. I'm so happy.
Were there actually drugs being done in that house?
That's what they said. They said they had pictures of them. They didn't find any that day, but they said they'd been watching the house. And I said, I wished I had a clue, because I wouldn't have went there at night, you know.
I used to work, I was a social worker for the school, and I went into this house on Sexton one time, and a couple hours after I got back to the school, one of my other families, one of the other mothers came in. She said, did I see you coming out of that crack house on Sexton? Well, I didn't know it was crack house. I said, well, I was on Sexton. She said, you cannot go in there by yourself. If you have to go back there, you take me. I said, well, Wanda, I can't take you with me when I go see. But I didn't know. I went into those kind of places all the time. I was oblivious, you know.
Yeah, and picking up kids for Sunday school. You know, sometimes you'd get there and the police will be there. And it's, all I want to do is get these kids and take them to Sunday school, you know. But the police officers were always pretty nice. Yeah.
What was your relationship like with some of the other nurses and the hospital staff? You'd mentioned that there were several people that you were able to stick up for or come alongside.
Yes. You know, you have your cliques everywhere. And so nursing is no different. And some of the nurses that I always associated with was those that were being picked on by the blonde hair and blue-eyed beauties that really wasn't doing any work. But people that they wanted to fire, they wanted to get rid of, they kind of shunned. Those were the nurses that I would stick up for. You can't fire this person because somebody else doesn't like how she wears her hair, or they say she didn't dress like they wanted her to dress, or what have you, and then she didn't associate with them outside of the hospital. Well, I didn't either, so, but I knew they didn't like me, so it wasn't any big deal. But I would stick up for those type of people, the downtrodden, I guess you would say. And I think two of them that I fought for them not to fire are still working there. So it's been, you know, they've been working there 25 or 30 years now.
How many years did you say you were there? 42? 42.
Well, I was 42, but actually I began at Boone Hospital in 1964, between my junior and senior year of high school. We had a program called COE, Cooperative Occupational Education. And so I worked as a nurse's aide. They taught me how to read a thermometer, take blood pressures, and give baths. That's about all we did. So if I count those years, it'll be a few more.
It sounds like that a tendency in your life is that you found yourself coming alongside people, you're in close proximity, you're in close relationship with people. What advice would you give our coaches as we try to hopefully do that same thing, where we're walking alongside people, we're working with them through challenges and barriers, and we're trying to be aware of our biases? What advice would you might you offer to coaches based on your experience?
Try not to be judgmental. Don't let your first impression be your lasting impression. Just try to identify with your client. And one little thing I hate for people to say is, oh, I know how you feel. No, you don't know how they feel. You know, you haven't been without meals for 3 days. You haven't had your children taken away from you. You haven't been without a home, a car, you know, a job. You haven't been there. So don't say, I know how you feel, because you don't. You just say, I feel you. That's a good word to you. I feel you. But try not to be judgmental. You're going to run up with people that have had some very hard lives and are trying to get back on track. Don't judge them by their past.
I don't really know you very well, but you have Jane's spirit. I mean, really.
Well, we keep thinking of things to do together for a lot of years now.
Yeah.
I could go on and on about Edie, honestly.
Just what she said now, the thing that you do is you always see the best in people. You know, I mean, she does. She's somehow another, and you sound like exactly the same kind of person. You know how to make people feel good about themselves.
I hope so.
Well, I think, you know, even Edie just was sharing with us with her, she's done extra mile coaching. And just, again, had a single mom who wasn't probably spending her food money the wisest. But instead of, as you said, judging her, you started giving her other suggestions.
Yes.
Because you recognized sending her kids to the convenience store was maybe the best she could do. She didn't have a car.
Yeah.
They were living in a food desert. And just, so instead of just making those wrong assumptions, you always try to see that people really are doing the best they can with the information they have.
Yes.
They just so often haven't had the opportunities or the mentoring to know any different.
Yeah. Jane's talking about my client was, did I tell you that she had the boys and she was feeding them from the service station, sending them down there getting pizza, ready-made sandwiches and soda and cookies, potato chips. And so I bought her a crock pot and told her, you know, get your meat or whatever you're going to have for supper. And that's a little planning she had to do, but put it on before you go to work and it'll be ready for you guys when you get home in the evening time. They get home about 6 or 7 because the boys had after school program. And she tried it a couple of times, but I don't know if she's still doing it or not, but I just couldn't imagine somebody feeding kids from the service station, you know.
Yeah.
Especially big old boys, the way they eat up a lot of stuff. You know?
I'd love to hear a little bit too about some of the women, the young mothers that had babies, and you didn't just teach their class. Sometimes you went back and made sure that they knew what they were doing after they took the class. You got any stories about that?
Oh, Tasha comes in mind. Tasha was here from Mobile, Alabama. She did the childbirth class with Living Large, and we got her all set up. And she had 2 or 3 other kids, older kids. But with this one, when she finished class, she said, Miss Prince, I did all my babies wrong. Said, I didn't know you were supposed to do this, this, and this to the baby. And she's like you, didn't know she was going to have that postpartum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would check on her, and we got to be great friends, still friends. She works over at the Love Seat. I guess she's still over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and then one young lady ended up having a C-section, and she didn't have any place to stay. So one of the ladies that was working with you, Jane, let her stay at her house. And I would go over and change her dressing and make sure it stayed clean, her incision, and just to keep her out of the hospital.
Well, and I don't think Edie's ever going to retire.
Yes, I am.
So she's still
But you
doing
have a
some.
plan.
She's still doing some home health care.
Yeah.
And she's still active in different clubs in town. She's really been a bridge to a lot of people. And as I told her, you've been in book clubs with a couple different churches, bridging the divide between black and white churches, and just the racial divide. Edie is a friend to one and all, so we can all brag about having Edie as our friend. But she's continuing to do that type of work and continuing to care for elderly in the home on occasion too. She may get doing more of that. But she's always thinking about helping other people find a path to a job too. So
it's my goal before I retire to get a home health service started. I believe the minorities, the poor people, just don't have the insurances or the financial help to have help at home when they're sick or even dying. You know, I'd like to do hospice care, just to help out, make them comfortable, and just, you know, send them off with a good feeling.
And you have volunteered with Live Well by Faith.
Yes.
Also, you might mention that.
Live Well by Faith is, through the Black churches, organization through the Black churches. And we learned how to eat better, eat healthy. We learned exercises. We promoted this flyer. Just being involved in the community, not only the Black community, you know, everybody needs healthy eating and exercises and have you. Of course, I did it with Russell Chapel. Out of that, we have a blood pressure cuff machine. And we had classes that would teach us about chronic diseases, diabetic management, and I'm certified to teach both of those classes, so I've taught those throughout the community. We did CPR, and the churches that finished the CPR courses received an AED defibrillator. And those things were $1,500 a piece. And I think it was 6 churches that were able to complete the program. Of course, Russell Chapel was one of them. And we have ours and know how to use it. And we're going to teach some other folks how to use it. So it'll be several people at the church to know how to use it if we need to. In Live Well by Faith, we have a community garden. It's out at Friendship Church on Smiley. I think it's 12 or 14 beds out there, raised garden beds. And that's a exercise and a chore within itself, but it's pleasant. You know, I usually go when nobody else is there because I just kind of like my time by myself where I can pray, thank God for his bounty, and God, please help me pull these weeds so I won't have to come back out here anytime soon. Yeah, but I really enjoy it, really enjoy it. and live well by faith. We had the African heritage cooking class. We did that at the Salvation Army. And I think those are about the only classes we have.
Verna Lavoie from the health department coordinates that.
Yes.
And Edie's been one of her main volunteer coaches. So honestly, we could go on for at least 2 or 3 more hours about everything Edie's done, but she's a remarkable person who has overcome so much and given so much to our community.
Can I mention my jail ministry?
Oh yeah,
Sure,
okay.
yeah.
She loves jail ministry, so she's gonna have to bring that up.
A Bible study now with the women at Boone County Jail. Edith Taylor, I met her in Church Women United, and Reverend Julia Wheels she used to be at St. Andrew's Lutheran Church, and we did Bible study on Sunday afternoons with the women prisons. And then I got involved with the prison, the state prison. It was down at Wren's Farm down in Jeff City at that time. And we would go down there and do our Bible studies and have an ice cream and cookie social every year. And then the flood of '93 came, so we moved over to the men's prison area, Church Farm. And we continued there until the prison was built in Vandalia. And we would travel over there for our meetings and tried to do a Bible study, but they weren't as inviting as when the prison was over at Wren's and Church Farm. So we kind of dropped that program. Mm-hmm. But we did a program called Patch, Parents and Their Children. I used to do supervised visits there at the prison, and the guardian would bring the children, visit their moms, and we have activities and lunch for them. So I really love that.
They didn't have to be between the glass or
no, we had our own little meeting room, and it was a little playground area attached to that meeting room.
Do you still do ministry in the playground?
I do not. No, I do not.
I don't think they have the patch program anymore.
Well, they were getting rid of it.
Yeah.
They did in Vandalia. They got rid of it in Vandalia, but the women's prison in Chillicothe, I thought was going to keep it for a little bit. And I'm in Church Women United. I'm recruiting volunteers.
Well, when she says jail ministry, that was Edith Taylor from First Christian and Julia Will from St. Andrew's Lutheran, and then her from Russell Chapel. So again, Edie's always been in a integrated team of just bridging gaps. So you're our example for just joining with whomever wants to join hands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been talking about some resources and looked into, Brian Stevenson, which some of you all may be familiar with. He's a death row attorney, author of Just Mercy, and that the movie's been popularized pretty recently. He talks about 4 steps to promote change: proximity, changing the narrative, staying hopeful, and then doing something uncomfortable. And what you've described to us so far is all 4 of those things. That close proximity to people, not trying to care for people at a distance, changing the narrative. I think what you and Jane both talked about it completely changes how we look at people if we see that they're doing the best they can with what they have. Mm-hmm. That we're not looking at them based on any kind of prejudgment, but we go in assuming that they're doing the best they can with what they have available to them right now. I'm interested though, because and some of these we talked about last week too, racism has not just been something that's been in the past for you. It wasn't something that was gone in the civil rights movement. It was in the 80s and 90s while you were doing hospital that seemed like it was the most intense. But even recently with home health care, you've had some experiences too. So what gives you hope now? What keeps you hopeful?
The hope I see is during the protests. It's just so good to see the younger people the diversity in races, coming together for one cause. Because back in our day, it was the older people, us older ones. Well, I wasn't all that old, but the older ones that were making the most noise. But now, these young people are together, and they may be doing some looting and some bad things, but the majority of them are peaceful and really do want a change. And they understand that everybody's the same and everybody's being treated differently, but the same, if that makes any sense. And I just admire that diverse crowd and the youngness of those people with the energy they have to try to bring about some change.
And that last point about doing something uncomfortable, it almost seems like that just describes your entire life. That you mentioned last week that you've just never been afraid to be the only Black person in the room, or the town even. You talked about.
Yeah, correct.
Depending on where you were.
Yeah, we were in Spearman, Texas. One of the nurses that had worked with us, that was her hometown, and she went home. And she wanted us to come visit, but Edie, you've got to come, you've got to come. All right, I'll come, but she forgot to tell me that I'd be the only Black in the town. So I went, and everybody was very respectful, and we had a very good time. It was her grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary, and all their guests and everybody was just really nice. Didn't make any difference.
And that's what we're all headed for, isn't it? A place where it doesn't make any difference.
Yes.
Well, you're leading the charge, Edie.
I hope so. I hope so. My father-in-law would always tell me, nobody's going to listen to you. Said you talk too soft. Said you're going to have to. You're going to have to talk really loud so that people will know that you mean something. But I've never learned to really shout or talk real loud.
I think it's quite the opposite, actually. Everybody's shouting these days.
Yeah.
The people you have to stop and listen to that are making the most, you actually need to
make an effort to listen.
Like you have to stop and, everybody's shouting about what they think is important. It's those people that are persistent that are really making the difference. I would think the opposite of what he is saying.
Well, and I think by you keeping your voice low, you're encouraging everybody else to lower their voice too.
Yeah.
It's very calming and comforting and
peaceful.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
I do want to open up if you're comfortable taking some questions, if anybody has any questions.
Sure.
Everybody in the room here has kind of participated to some degree, but those of you that are online with us especially, if you guys have any questions for Edie, feel free.
Can I ask one?
Sure, Nancy.
Edie, you and I are exactly the same age. We're both nurses in OB. I'm white. You know me, you know Kent and Becky King, you took care of their mom. I kind of connected the two of you. But here's my fear. What's happening now from my perspective, because I was at the University of Wisconsin in the 60s with all the demonstrations on the Vietnam War. And it scares me because what we need to fix in people being treated fairly is so very important. But it scares me because the money behind what they're taking, and Dr. Robert Woodson, who is a Black man, do you know him from the Woodson Center?
No.
If you've never heard him, Google him and look. He's a gentleman like you, of great quality, of great wisdom. We need lots of people like you, and he's like that. But it scares me because the people behind some of this don't have good motives for justice and mercy and loving each other. They want to see our country destroyed. They want to see what has succeeded destroyed. And I was at the University of Wisconsin in the 60s when they blew up the math research building 50 years ago this year and killed people. And it wasn't, they were doing the same thing then, the money behind it, and that scares me. The energy, the young people I see, I love Columbia, I love what you're saying, but it scares me because my husband was in ROTC at that time at the university. I was in nursing school, and it was so scary because the background wasn't to fix the problem. The background was to destroy our country and the foundation. And it's bigger than that behind it now, and it scares me. Do you see or have any feel for any of that?
Well, I somewhat disagree with you.
Okay.
I think that, like I said, that the young people, they have a strong desire to make a change, to do things differently, to do things so that everybody has a chance.
I agree with you with the young people. It's the people that are not our young people, that are coming in from the outside feeding behind. I agree with you on our young people, 100%, Edie. But because my husband was in the military then and for career, it scares me with the people behind that might try and grab what is heartfelt and correct from our young people and use them in an evil way that they don't want.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nancy, my husband's military also. He was wounded in Vietnam, and he came home in 1967. Just this past December 2019, were we able to get any benefits for him? He was wounded in Vietnam and field dressed there and sent to Japan and back to the United States. He couldn't get a job, couldn't get, he couldn't even be seen at the VA hospital.
Yeah, that's awful.
And I have fought for him for these last 50 years plus. So the demonstrations in Wisconsin, I don't know, not sure who was behind it or what, but I just feel like they just wasn't really, truly engaged in the problem. Some people, you know, will go along to get along.
Yes, yes.
And I don't believe this crowd today is doing that. I believe
that's
they're really into it for the right reasons.
I would agree.
Good.
Suzanne,
Good.
I'm 34 and I'm white and I have 3 young children. And I feel like a lot of the protesting has made it aware to our families, to our privileged white families, that there is an issue going on that we weren't necessarily even aware about because we are not racist, but some of the programs are racist that we are in, and some of the lively things that we take for granted have a background of racism because that's what a lot of the country was built on. So we didn't realize, like, there's certain conversations I don't have to have with my son that my best friend is Black and her son is the same age as mine, that she might have to have with hers because my son's white with blonde hair and blue eyes and hers is not. And so I think a lot of this change comes from families like mine and my friends that are other white families with young children, raising our children to be aware of the injustice, be aware of the racism, be aware of the privilege, and trying to fix it from there. I think it actually starts with us raising our children and changing their mindsets on what we were raised in, because I was raised by a family that wasn't considered racist, but there were things that I would do that words that I would say or movies that I would watch that were racist, and the underlying racism that was in all of it. And now that I'm aware, I can change that for my children, and other families that were not aware of it can change it for their families. So I think a lot of the protesting has actually brought an awareness and has made a difference. And I feel like Columbia has done a very good job of making it aware, and the protesting has done good and has done what I think the whole goal behind it was. And unfortunately, that's not what you see on the national news. You see the hate and the anger and the fear on the national news because that's what sells.
Right.
But I think in a lot of places there is this peaceful coming together of let's figure out a way to fix it. Now that you're aware, let's move forward and see what we can do to make it better.
Yes, I see that also.
And here Suzanne is as a new loving volunteer.
I just jumping right in.
Yes, David.
You see this defund the police movement. And I'm wondering what your experience or your sense of the wider community is with the Columbia Police in relationship to the Black community.
Well, defunding the police, I think, I don't know where they would take the money. I just think that they need to rearrange the money and put it in a area. I hate to see the school resource officers gone, but if they could use that money for community policing, I think it would be just as good as school resource officers. If they, just put that money where it would benefit the community and the police department. You can't leave them out because they probably could get a little raise or something out of it. You can defund it, as they say, but people don't understand, I don't think, that defunding doesn't mean that you're going to take them away completely. It means that the money can be used in different areas. That's what it means to me. They can be used in different areas of the police department.
So from what I'm hearing from you, I'm not gathering that there's a lot of antagonism or bad relationships between the local police and the Black community here.
Yes, and I'll raise my hand. Back in the 90s, I was the one that was there. Well, even in 2000, I was the one that would be the front one out talking to the police.
So you're saying the relationship is good or it's bad?
No, it's not. It's not good.
We do have a
it's
lot
better,
of African-American
but it's
police.
not good.
Or we used to have. Do we still?
Have what?
Well, we used to have. I used to do a Black History Month project when I worked for Parkgate School, and the students, the fifth graders, would shadow an African American. And we had a lot of policemen that volunteered for that, and of course they had to be African American. Are there still a lot of African American police officers?
I'm not aware. I don't know because I don't deal with them anymore. My son, who was 32 at the time, it was July 4th, 2004. A young guy had a pit bull dog that lived up the street from us, and there was a group of kids walking down the street, and he let the dog go, and of course the kids scattered. But when they scattered, they jumped on my car and in my son's truck, and somehow somebody called the police and said that it was a fight down there. Well, the police come very handy. Well, my son was in his truck trying to get people off of it so he could leave, because he lived in Millersburg at that time, and he was trying to leave. The police grabbed him, threw him down on the pavement, and one of them was on top of him. One didn't have his knee on his neck, but he was on top of him. So I laid on the pavement in front of my son and talked to him. Don't move, just be still. I don't want them to hurt you. And it was all these, about 6 or 7 big police officers that was surrounding us. And one of them told me, you have to get up there. I said, you don't tell me to get up. I said, when he gets up, I'll get up.
Wow.
And we lived like one stoplight away from the police department. So I gave them 15 minutes to get him there and checked in and everything. It was an hour and a half before by that time I'm down there demanding. I said, I give you 2 minutes to get my son. You're gonna tell me where he is and he better not be beaten.
They arrested him.
They arrested him.
Did they let him go finally?
Well, they took him to Boone County Jail. We had to make bail and everything, and then they threw out the case because he hadn't done anything. That was his property on our property.
When was that?
July the 4th, 2004. And the reason I remember, we were building a house where we live at now, and it was supposed to be ready the 1st of July, and it wasn't. And so I went the next week, I went out there where a police officer lived across the street from where we were building. And he saw me and he came and he said, ma'am, I remember you from the 4th of July. He said, but I didn't do anything. He said, I was there, but I didn't do anything. And he said, you were right with what you said. He said, but you know, that would have been kind of threatening because those officers are much bigger than you. I said, I don't care. I said, they didn't have the fury of a mother.
Yeah, that's
Well, I made it a point after some of the things that went on with the George Floyd murder to just ask some of my Black friends about their experience. So I'm glad that we're asking Edie about hers, because I think most police officers are wonderful in Columbia, but not necessarily everybody. And I asked a gentleman who was stopped a year ago just down the road from the Love office, and he was detained for an hour and a half, and he had not done anything. And finally they let him go. So I do think that it is still going on in Columbia, Missouri right now.
Man.
That's it.
Yeah.
I can tell you it is. Dr. Clinton Dawson, when he did some classes at our church, and I learned so much, it's still going on now. If he's in the wrong neighborhood, in his car at the wrong time, MU, first Black MU professor, pastor, well-known gentleman, they still stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it can, aggression can happen against anyone. It did happen against my husband once. And I won't go into all that story, but he wasn't doing anything either. So, but I do think it's definitely disproportionate.
And what's hard is in like a medical field, if you're a rotten doctor and you don't do a good job, you lose your license. But if you're a rotten police officer, they're kind of like, oh, you did a bad job.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow. Like but your job is just as important.
Right.
And
right.
I think that's, I don't know how to fix. I usually don't make a complaint if I don't have a way to fix it, because it's just hot air.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
the
don't know how to
solution.
fix
I don't
it.
know.
I do think though that we are getting closer, and I think that as you said, what's happened is opening up discussion. I think it's causing a lot more education, and maybe some of the peers, like that police officer that said I didn't do anything. I think it's going to give a voice to some of the peers to speak up against others in their own department.
It's hard to unlearn something that's been integrated into your personal your whole life. So I think it starts with those of us that have children reteaching, rethinking things, and making sure that they're taught differently. And
I'm about your age. We're about the same age, and
surely not.
I'm a few years younger than you, but we've seen change in our lifetime. I mean, not that we don't need to, but my best friend came to live with my husband and I when I was 21 and she was I guess Carla was 17. She got released from foster care and had no place to go to, and she's Black. And there were some people that made comments about her moving into my neighborhood. Well, how do your neighbors feel about her living there? I said, what do you mean, how do my neighbors feel? And of course, my neighbors didn't care really. But there were people that said those kind of things to me. And one time when she was older and had kids and she was staying with us and trying to find her own place, we called the place to go look at it to rent. And when we got there, 5 minutes away, when he saw she was Black, he said, oh, I already rented it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we knew he hadn't, so to go home, I was so mad. And Carla has your demeanor. She's like, well, I don't want to live there if he doesn't want to. And we sounded a lot like on the phone, so I called him and threatened to sue him. But I mean, you know, that, I just think it was worse than her. She was adopted by a white woman and who was married to a Black man, and she had to sign that she was Black in order to marry him. Of course, that's back 60, 70 years ago, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe some of that stuff. But
It has gotten better, but we've got a long way to go still.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we can be hopeful about progress, but yeah, we haven't achieved equal justice yet either.
But that was one of the points that Brian Stevenson, and we really do encourage, if you haven't seen the Just Mercy movie or read any or watch his TED Talk, Brian Stevenson, his third point was remain hopeful. And that's, you know, we do want to keep each other hopeful. And that's why we're here today.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that can give you more hope than Edie.
Yeah, and I can tell by your talking, you've been such an example, you know, to people to say, you know what, I'm a nurse, I'm the charge nurse, I can achieve, despite, you know, what racism I might have. And that's when I worked for the Columbia Public Schools, the homeschool communicator. Did you know Arnell Monroe? Spanky. Everybody said, oh no, I don't know him. I know Spanky. But anyway, he was doing a group with the kids, and Black kids, they didn't think there were lawyers and doctors that were Black. So we started a project where they shadowed, and we totally changed both the Black and white kids' concept of what professions Black people could do. When we did a survey ahead of time, they said janitor, you know, teacher in homeschool, because they did have some Black teachers. And then after the program, we did the same survey. We had to prove to get the funding. And it was amazing. And that educating them, I thought, was so important, you know, to meet people like you, you know. Yeah.
Well, I do think that we're out of time, but Edie, I really do appreciate your willingness to share, to be vulnerable about your experiences. And thank you, coaches, for all of you that have given your time this afternoon as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edie.
You're welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much.
Isn't she sweet?
She said that this
Nancy got me my first home health job.
she wouldn't